Rita. Turn the light off. Can you hear me okay with this wireless mic?
It's a little fuzzy, but...
Is the other one turned off?
No, I don't think it is, so maybe I shouldn't stand in front of it. Is the other?
I just turned it down.
Okay, yeah, if you could do that, thank you, Bev. Well, good morning, and thank you for being here. Where two or more are gathered, the Lord says it's going to be okay. This talk I'm having today is a lot of it's going to be a true story that happened to me when I was younger in the service. And then I'm going to finalize it at the end and kind of tie it together, what I'm talking about. But I want you to take a trip with me today, this morning, because it's kind of one of the stories of my life that I like. It taught me a great lesson in life. It was something I learned that throughout my life I remembered what I learned from this talk I'm going to give you. Also, Bev, I was just wondering, can you turn off these spots up here?
All right.
All right. I think the pictures show up a lot better when we have those down. It's the two light switches on the far right on the top. Far right. There you go. Good. Thank you. So, come with me on this trip. And Mike, I thought about you when I put this slide together right here, this one right here. There's more than one way to catch a fish. Is that true?
Oh, yeah.
Really? And even baits and lines and rods and reels and places to go and depth finders. There's just a lot of different ways to catch a fish, correct?
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that because I'm going to be getting into fishing here pretty soon. All right.
Well, you know, what some fishermen say about other fishermen, they ain't got a clue, so.
Yeah. Let's see if this is going to work. Always something. All right, I'm going to need to start this over here, if you don't mind, bear with me. I think if they sit too long, they don't. Okay, there we go. This is a map of the other side of the world. We've got Africa right here, Australia. I put that red star there, I just wanted to let you know where I was born. That's in Saudi Arabia, right on the Persian Gulf. And then over here is Southeast Asia, right there in that yellow star. And the story I'm going to tell you about happened there while I was over there. And this is Southeast Asia. You have Vietnam over here. South Vietnam, North Vietnam, that's where the war was. Cambodia, there's a lot of war going on there. And over here in Thailand, right next to Cambodia, on that red marker right there, right on the Gulf of Thailand, was an Air Force base that I worked at called Utapao Air Force Base. It is now an international airport. That's where it was located, right there. And you guys remember that, a lot of you can remember the Vietnam War and what was going on and all that kind of stuff. So, this is an aerial picture of the Air Force base that I worked at. That runway right there, because of the airplanes that tried to take off on that thing, were so big and so loaded with bombs and fuel that runway is 2 miles long. And that's what it took to get what they call a B-52, the type of airplane that we worked with. And oops, let me go back here. That's where I worked over here, and right across the base is over here where we live. That was the barracks right there. We worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It was a pretty grueling job. Very hot, humid. If you think Minnesota's hot and humid in the summer, boy, you got to try being over there. That was crazy. And then they had a time of the year called the monsoon season, where it rained so much. I mean, it just rained and rained and rained and rained. It never stopped. We actually, when we were out there working on the airplanes, you would have to work on airplanes for a couple hours, but then you might have a 20-minute break, but you didn't want to go sit in the break room or someplace in a hangar with wet clothes on, so we always worked in our underwear because it was hot, and at least when you went in to sit down and play cards or drink a pop or whatever, you didn't have to sit down in wet clothes. You could put dry clothes on. So that's Utapao Air Force Base in Thailand on the Bay of Thailand. Now, this right here is the end of the runway, and as soon as those planes took off, they were right over the ocean instantly. And it was pretty fun. But I had a friend, his name was Mike, and he and I would like to go to the beach. We'd walk from the base, our barracks down here, right down to the beach here, and we'd lay right about here. We didn't like to lay right under where the airplanes flew because we thought, well, if one crashes, I don't want to get squished. But you could lay right about here. Those B-52s would make so much noise is that the ground you were laying on actually shook as they flew by. And they were flying by all the time. And really noisy. You couldn't even talk when they were overhead. But at any rate, so we would lay there for hours, and you know how it was in those days. Healthy to get a tan, and we'd get really tan. But we just lay there and talk and enjoy the ocean. We'd go swimming a lot. But there was this restaurant. Now, I had a picture in this presentation. I just took it out because it wasn't that important. But this is a more recent picture of what was there before. Before, there was a hut. It was a big hut that the Thai people made, and it was a restaurant. And it was really actually a very good restaurant in the days of before vegetarianism for me, is you could go there, and you could go in there and buy, I don't know if you've ever had one of these, but they're water buffalo steaks, and they're this big. And you could go there and you could buy a water buffalo steak with 3 lobster tails for $3. And so Mike and I, we did our fair share of eating there. In the mess hall, we didn't like to eat in the mess hall because as you sat and ate, you could watch the rats run back and forth and everything. So it just wasn't a good thing. So this might be worse, but my mom used to send me care packages, and so I lived on popcorn and Spam. I'm not sure that's any healthier than eating in the cafeteria, but anyway, so we would lay there and just enjoy the day. The one day off. In fact, about 3 months after I was there, we did some things to make the commander of our squadron commander, give us 2 days off. We told him we can do 3 shifts a day instead of 2 shifts, not 12-hour shifts, but 8-hour shifts, 3 times a day, and also get 2 days off. That's another story how we did that. But anyway, so we ended up getting 2 days off, and so Mike and I would each day we go down here and land the beach. And that restaurant, which is a really nice restaurant right now, if you look at pictures of the restaurant, it's really a fancy tourist place now. But that was a hut. And Mike and I would go there, eat, and then we go back and land the beach. And almost every time we were there, we noticed an old man in a boat. And he'd come in from the ocean. You could see him far, far off. And he'd just come putting it up to the shore and take it right onto the shore. Small little boat, little one cylinder motor, one of the, and just came up. And he would come out with sacks of stuff. Sometimes he'd come out with big fish, and he'd walk to the restaurant. And he'd be in there for a little while, and he'd come back out with some other stuff. And he'd put it in his boat and turn it around and go out in the ocean again. I told Mike, I said, what do you think he's doing? That was kind of interesting. Who is that guy? And so next time we're there he comes again. I think he came every day, and there he was again, did the same thing over and over again. About the 3rd or 4th time, I told Mike, I said, I gotta go talk to this guy. I just want to know who he is and what he's doing. This is really kind of cool. So I did. I went over there, got up off the beach, and went over and talked to the guy. The guy could speak very little English, and I could speak some Thai language. But between the two of us, we could figure out what each other was saying. It took a while, but we did. And what he told me was that he was a fisherman, which I kind of figured that, and he would come here and trade with the restaurant for fish or whatever else he had to barter with, and he would take salt and whatever oil, whatever he needed with the restaurant. And they had this bartering system going. It was kind of cool. And then he'd go back out to an island that he owned 12 miles offshore. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to see that, Mike? Mike says, yeah, it actually would. So I told Mike the next time we see him, I'm going to go talk to him again and ask him if we can pay him to take us to his island for the 2 days we had off. And so that's what we did. We actually got a hold of this guy and said, could we pay you? And he was very excited about that. He said, yes, GI, yes, GI, I can do that, And so, okay, good. So next time we come down, we made an appointment with him and everything. Sure enough, we're on the beach, and he came up in his boat. And Mike and I decided, okay, he's on an island. He lives on an island 12 miles offshore. Why don't we rent, because you could do this, you could rent scuba tanks from the Air Force Base, and you could go scuba diving. So we decided to do that. We grabbed some tanks. We got in his boat with the tanks, and started 12 miles offshore. Okay, so here is the Air Force Base, and this is 12 miles to a little island right there. Now, I'm sure I don't think anybody probably owns his island now, but he claimed that he did own it at the time that we were there. And so that's what we did. And on the way out there, he started talking to us about some stuff. It was hard to communicate, like I said before, but if you took your time and really concentrated, you could really kind of get an idea of what he was saying. But here's a closer picture of the island, and almost like a horseshoe. But I'll tell you what, and here's the inlet, little cove, and that's where he lived up there. I got on a slide, I'll show you exactly where he was. But talk about a beautiful island. I mean, the water was crystal clear, the breeze was always blowing, and it was just kind of a dream place, for me. I love the ocean, and an island like that was just a beautiful place to be at. So the first time we came from this direction, came around the island here, came around this cove, and landed a boat right over in this area. You kind of put them close to the side there to keep, because the waves would come in here, and so and that's all white sandy beach right there. And so then, this is where there's that beach again, and you see the waves here, but he parked his boat over here. He had actually 3 boats. A bigger boat, and the little one-cylinder boat is the one he just traveled with. I think it was the fastest boat he had, mine was probably about, 5 miles an hour at the most, if that. The wind was blowing hard. But this is where he had his hut right there. That's where he lived. And after Mike and I had gone to his island, possibly, maybe 3, 4 times, because we did this every chance we got. We became really good friends with this guy. And he built us a little hut right over there. So we weren't coming into sleeping on the sand anymore or on the beach and on the open stars. The guy was nice enough to build, because it rained once in a while, and he kind of felt sorry for us laying out there in the rain at night. But it was kind of fun. And so he built us a hut, and we were real thankful for that. And Mike and I, we get paid, we didn't have anything to spend our money on, so we gave him a lot of money and helped his family. He had 8 children and a wife that we called Mama San, because her name was too hard to pronounce, so we just called her Mama San. But they would have us at their hut every night. She would cook for us every day. Every day she'd cook and everything. She was a fabulous cook. And right there where that star is the first time I got a chance to eat dog. Now, I didn't know I was eating it until I asked Mike one evening. I said, Mike, this isn't fish, and they're too poor to afford beef. What do you think kind of meat this is? It's good. Well, what do you think it is? He goes, I have no idea. So Mama San, and she didn't speak hardly any English at all. But talked to her, and they had these little dogs running around their huts and everything. Quite a few of them, if you just let dogs breed, they get quite a few of them. And there were quite a few of them, and she pointed to one of them, when I finally got through to her, that, okay, this is, so I got to experience that. Don't ever want to do it again. I have to say, the way she cooked it was good, but it was just the idea. So that's where we kind of slept and stayed when we were there. Now, As we were going out, the first trip we were taking out with the man, with the fisherman, he told us that he was very excited and happy to see that we brought scuba equipment. And we thought, well, okay, or maybe he wants to try it out. I don't know if he ever done it before. He says, because if you want to, you can help me fish. I looked at Mike and I thought, how are we going to help him fish? We don't have spear guns. We don't have rod and reels. What do you do with a scuba tank? Beat the fish over the head and what? I don't know. So we asked him, okay, we'll be more than happy to help it. How do you want us to help? He told us this story, and this is where it gets really interesting. He said that not only was he a fisherman, but he had a part-time job with his brother. And his brother was hired by the U.S. government. What they do with all these, they dropped millions of bombs over there. I would say that it was in the millions. But they would ship all these bombs to the United States, made in the United States. They'd ship them on these big ships, and about 4 miles away from the base, right there on the Bay of Thailand, they would unload these big ships of all these bombs, and they'd be on the docks. And then they had hired the Thai people to get the bombs from the dock and transport them in their broken down trucks. I can't believe that these trucks didn't even carry these things, to the base and then unload them. And so here's a picture of transporting, some Thai guys transporting bombs, heading to the Utapao Air Force Base to be able to load on the bombs. And the fisherman told Mike and I, this is where it gets really interesting, he said, so what my brother and I and a couple friends do every once in a while, and of course I'm telling the story through English, we steal a bomb. And I looked at Mike and I thought, who cares? We hated the war anyway. We didn't want to be there. So if it's going to help you to steal a bomb, by all means, take a bomb. But what he would do, he told me, is his brother and him would take the bomb and they would saw it with a hacksaw in half. Now, when he first said that, I thought to myself, I can't even imagine that. I can't even picture it in my mind, because the skin, the thickness of the bomb border, the outside, is about that thick of steel. And that bomb, the bomb's right that I just, here's what a bomb looks like. That's a 500-pound bomb. But they would carry it with 2 or 3 or 4 guys, and they'd take it someplace and they'd start saw. And I can just imagine it probably took them days to cut this with a hacksaw. But what they do is they actually cut it in a couple places in half, thirds or whatever, and then they would dig out the explosives out of the inside of the bomb, which was the kind of the same substance of a hard clay substance. And then what they would do is they would take that substance, powderize it, put it in a pop can, okay? And once they got it in the pop can, then they'd take a candle and they'd seal the top up, make it waterproof. And then what they'd do is they'd take a waterproof fuse, drill a little hole in there, and put the fuse in the can. I thought, okay. As he's telling this story, I'm trying to follow this out. And then what he would do is he would get in his little dinghy, not the motorized one, but the paddle one, and he would come out here and he would throw these cans, light them, and throw them at the point of the island. There's a lot of fish at the point of these islands. And he would throw them out there, and you guessed it, that's the way he used to fish. And I don't know if you've ever done that, but what happens is the concussion in the water stuns the fish. Kills some of them, but a lot of them get stunned, and they come rising to the top. And they're floating on the top. Nothing's wrong with them, they've just been shocked by the shock wave in the water. And so he comes along with his dinghy, and he paddles, and he starts picking up these fish and putting in his boat. Mike and I thought, wow, that's really ingenious. That's really something to be able to do that. And then he told us, but the bigger fish, see, these aren't really a lot of big fish, but the bigger fish, they sink and go down to the bottom. And it's about 50, 60 feet deep. And that's where the scuba tanks come in handy. And so Mike and I, we wouldn't be in the water when we threw the pop can full of explosives, but we would wait, finish, and all of a sudden these fish start right at the top. We put our tanks on, we dive down 50, 60 feet, we pick up these big fish, kind of like in the picture that you saw that he had on the beach, and we just put him in his little dinghy, Go back down and get some more. As many as we could. Some of them were still pretty lively, so when you grabbed them, they were like, whoo, and you had to hold on to them. They were kind of pulling you everywhere. But more than one way to catch a fish, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Now, I'd venture to say, if you tried that here in Minnesota, you'd probably get arrested, wouldn't you? I don't think they allow you to use diving.
No.
But that's the story that I have. That I was kind of blessed to be able to experience this experience because I got to know the family. We gave them a lot of money before we left to go back to the States because they were struggling like a lot of people do in the world, and they were just a nice family. The kids were just amazing. The kids were just, I don't think the kids there ever learned how to play. Well, American GI knows how to play, and so when we got there, we would back there on that island. There were some places where you could jump off the rocks and dive into the water. And so we got the kids doing that. They'd really never done that before. They're always working with fish and drying fish and helping dad and helping mom and da-da-da-da, But when we got there, we kind of probably messed up their routine a little bit. But it was fun. We got to play with the kids a lot and swimming. And we taught them how to surf. Well, body surf. We didn't have surfboards, but we taught them how to body surf and stuff. And we just loved being out there with them. And it was a fun thing. So what does this have to do with the scripture that we read? Jesus went out and found some men. He said, I want to make you fishers of men, didn't he? And this lesson that I told you about taught me a great lesson in my life, is that there's not just one way to do something. There just isn't. Even though we think our way's the best, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the only way. And it's okay to do it another way. So let me get into this a little bit. Matthew 6:15 says, and he said unto them, go ye into the world and preach the gospel to every creature. So Jesus said what? Go out to the world and do what? Preach the gospel. And then in Acts 10:42 he says, and he commanded us, that's not even saying asking, but he says he commanded us to preach the gospel to the people and to testify that he is the one whom God has appointed judge of the living and the dead. Now, I want to make a statement. Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad that Jesus was just talking to disciples and he really wasn't talking to us here in the 21st century? Aren't you glad he wasn't telling us that? Or was he? Of course he was. He just wasn't talking to disciples. He was talking to us today. He was saying the exact same words to the disciples, and he's saying the exact same words to us today. He's saying, go and do something. And then he even commanded, go and preach something, the gospel. Now, I really like these next few slides. Preaching the gospel is really something. A lot of people have different ways of doing it, right? You get the hellfire people up there, and you get the really meek people, and you got you just have to love, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the gospel. But preaching the gospel, to me, is very interesting, the way people do it differently. And so, preaching the gospel. Read these words and stick them in your mind. Preach the gospel at all times. You got that? Did you get it in there? Is it seared into your memory? Preach the gospel at all times. And when necessary, use words.
Amen.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean that maybe it's the way we do things and not so much the way we say things? In Matthew 4:18, it says this, and Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw the two brethren, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, and casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And he saith unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. What did they do? Did they get back in the boat and get away from this crazy guy? No, they dropped what they were doing, and they left. They went. Now let me ask you a question. When Jesus picked these 12 gentlemen, did they all have the same personality? No. Did they all do the things the same way? No. Did they think the same way? No. Did they all get along and agree on everything? No. They were all different. They were all different. They had their strong points. We know that reading the Gospels. They had their strong points. And they also had weak points. Aren't you glad it's only the disciples that have that problem? Do you have strong points? Do you have weak points? You know, I've been in this church long enough to get to know most of you. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about names and things you do, but I see the gifts that each one of you have. And a lot of times it blows me away. The gifts that you have. I know we come here each Sabbath. I know we live our lives out there in the week, and then we come here to church like that. But you guys have gifts, and I see them. Now, you might not see them sometimes. You might think it's, just mundane stuff, and you just do things. But I know for a fact that I could call out on each of your names, and I could give you descriptions of exactly the gifts that I see that you guys have. And every single one of you here today has them. You have gifts. So Jesus picked 12 guys, and they weren't all the same. They were different. They were really different. And we've heard preachers get up in the pulpit and say, you have to preach a sermon to give the gospel. And then a lot of times they'll say, you have to give Bible studies. You got to do it. That's what you got to do. And then they say that you got to go to a foreign land and you've got to spread the gospel over there and teach them what Jesus is all about. Well, no, you don't have to do those things. There are people who have those gifts, and they do them. But apparently none of us have those gifts because we're right here, right? We're not out there preaching at some, island or another country, or not all of us give sermons and not all of us give Bible studies. But you do have gifts. It might not be these particular ones. And what I'm trying to say is that there are different ways of doing things. You look at these pictures I put together here. This guy right here is giving a Bible study to a young person. That's a gift. God gives people the ability to open up the scripture and explain something when someone has a question. This little old lady has a couple young kids reading a book to them. Not out of the Bible, but what's she giving them? She's giving them her time. That's a gift. This young man helping an older lady across the street. Compassion, help, service. That's a gift. This young lady hugging an old person, an old man. Anybody hate hugs? I know a couple of you might raise your hand, but most people, reaching out to somebody like, there it is, reaching out to somebody like that is really a special thing. This gentleman right here, feeding hungry children, maybe in a third world country, that's a gift. That is truly a gift to be able to go someplace and take your resources and put together something that somebody really needs. How about this young lady visiting someone in the hospital? She's just given her a card. Child has a gift. This guy right here is probably a doctor. Spent many, many hours at school learning how to heal people. That's a gift too that God has given him. A young man giving money to a homeless person. That's also a gift. And this man stopped to pray with somebody. Is prayer a gift from God? Yeah, it is. It really is. Everything that we do in his name is a gift. When they threw Mary at the feet of Jesus, caught in the very act of adultery, what did Jesus do? He didn't judge her, did he? No. He didn't say, woman, what's wrong with you? He really didn't do any of that. What he did, and he didn't really say very much, but what he did through his actions. And through his actions, he showed her how much he cared about her. And though he didn't use a lot of words, the action that he actually gave her, his actions that he gave her, changed her life. It changed Mary's life. When we read about Mary in future verses, she's a changed woman and very appreciative. But what did Jesus give her? He gave her love. He gave her acceptance. He gave her care. He stood in between those men and her and protected her. That's something we could do. Can we do things like that? You bet you we can. God has given us each gifts. So you might have one, you might have 3, you might have 20. I don't know. I've seen a lot of them from all of you here. I've seen it. I've seen it since I've been here. But he has given everybody something. 1 Corinthians, using the gift that God gave me, I did the work of an expert builder and laid the foundation, and someone else is building on it. But each of you must be careful how you build. That's a gift that he's given us, to be able to be able to go and set foundations in people's lives, the foundation of Jesus. And then in 1 Corinthians 14:1, it is love, then, that you should strive for. Set your hearts on spiritual gifts, especially the gift of proclaiming God's message. Set our hearts on giving the message about Jesus. 1 Corinthians 14:37, if anyone supposes he is God's messenger or has a spiritual gift, he must realize that what I am writing you is of the Lord's command. So God's really telling us, I have given you these things, and what I want you to do is use them. And like I said before, I've seen you guys using them here, right in this church. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen at this park thing. Can we show the love that Jesus has to the people who show up at the park that day? I think we can. Because I've seen all your gifts. Do not neglect the spiritual gift that is in you. It's 1 Timothy 4:14. Do not neglect it. Would you agree with me if I made the statement the world is getting kind of crazy today? Everywhere you look on the news, something's not going on really well. Something bad. A lot of stuff's going on. Mass shootings seems like almost a weekly or monthly event. Even in churches, happens in churches. The list of what's wrong with this world is long, and it keeps going on and on and on. This world, simply put, needs Jesus.
Amen.
And there's people out there, probably the majority of people, who don't even know that they need Jesus. They don't. They need to experience Jesus' love. Now, how does that happen? How does somebody get to experience Jesus' love?
Through us.
Exactly, through us. I'm here today because I met a man named Pat Kelly who lived a Christ-like life, and what I saw in him was Jesus, although at the time I did not know what I was looking at, but it was Jesus. And I was drawn to it. I was a hellion. I was drinking and drugs and all sorts of stuff. But yet when I saw something that was different, and it was Jesus through Pat Kelly, I was drawn to it. And that's what happens when you put Christ in your life and you allow him to work through you, is that people are drawn not to you, but to Jesus in you. And that's where we start to get the privilege of using the gifts that God gave us. So, take your gift, whatever it may be, and share it with the world. And you cannot sit there and tell me today that you do not have a gift. That is not true. Each of you do. And many of you have multiple gifts. In fact, probably all of you have multiple gifts. So, take that gift, take those gifts, and share it with the world. And then keep in mind that there's just not one way to do something. Your gift might be different than mine, and mine might be different than anybody else's. but they're okay. God gave them to you. Use them. And keep in mind that while you're using them, there's more than one way to catch a fish.
Amen.
I'm going to have to go back there right now and get the slide for the song that we're going to be doing. So if you give me a few seconds,